Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a long time, it's Creepers with DS Sports as always. We're back and we're catching up, we're just catching up. It's now the end of the domestic season, pretty much anywhere across Europe, across Scotland, England, everywhere right now. There's just a few more matches to be played round the continent. One that's going to be coming up this evening in Scotland as well. But yes, we're at the end of the season now. I'm going to be catching up on all the videos, going to be catching up on the ideas that I was meant to be doing about over the last few months that I haven't quite got around to doing. But yes, the main one we're going to be talking about today is the call-ups. It's the national team squad was announced last Wednesday for the European Championships coming up. That starts on the 11th of June. Scotland's first game on the 14th of June against the Czech Republic, and we look at the 26 names that will be going and representing the Tartan Army, representing Scotland at the European Championships this summer. As always guys, remember to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and hopefully let's give this a wee adjustment. There we go. Yes, we're going to be looking at 26 names and what's going to be the potential outcomes for the summer, and the lineup we'll probably be looking at over for certainly the warm-up games, and the lineup we'll be looking at for the first game against the Czech Republic on the 14th of June at Hampden Park. So let's get into the video. A wonderful video announcement came up with a little video montage of certain people around the country, big personalities, big faces on the television and all around the country in different walks of life, announcing individual players that will represent Scotland at the European Championships. So, all in all, you must admit it's a pretty decent squad. No real surprises. There was a couple of names that we thought may have been in there. There's nobody that's really out of left field. Nobody that we didn't really expect to get into the squad or be amongst the 26. So yeah, all in all, like I say, not a lot to be surprised about. We'll start at the very back. The goalkeepers, as we could imagine, the three that were named in the last squad continue into the summer with Craig Gordon, David Marshall, and of course John McLaughlin as well. Three guys all in their mid to late 30s, so no younger prospects in this, like the likes of Rob McCrory. Yeah, other names around the country bouncing about that you could be looking at. Liam Kelly as well. So yeah, not a lot of younger faces. Zander Clark was a name we all mentioned. Obviously he's done a double with St Johnstone this season, a historic double in the case. A lot of his name was being thrown around, a lot of people getting behind his campaign to get into the national team, but it wasn't to be for him. Whether it'll be some point in the future is remained to be seen, as you can imagine. So David Marshall, we all kind of knew if he was fit he would go, the hero of the playoff campaign, and obviously has been the number one pretty much the entire time in the last 12 months. So a name that we definitely aren't surprised to hear, but there is questions over his game time and the fact that he's also played at a Derby County team, which only just avoided relegation on the last day, having drawn with fellow rival Sheffield Wednesday in that case. But nonetheless, some great experience, and obviously the number one keeper. Craig Gordon, 56 caps for the national team, a wonderful servant to the game up north, and obviously has been a key figure in getting Hearts promotion back into the SPFL. Also the Scottish Premiership. The SPFL is obviously consists of all 4 leagues in the country. But yes, back to the Premiership for him with his Hearts team. In his 39th year now, is basically halfway to 39, but still valuable experience in there. So you can't really deny that. Was always really going to be second choice in the end. Third choice, John McLaughlin, only 2 caps for the national team. Obviously part of Rangers' squad that won the Premiership this year. So two goalkeepers who have won their own respective leagues this year. Obviously there was questions over whether he would get in, whether Zander Clark would get in, like I said, or the likes of Liam Kelly was in there as well, but maybe not so much. But still, third choice goalkeeper, whether he'll get much game time remains to be seen. Obviously not something we need to maybe happen ahead of him to potentially change all that. So not a lot to really shout about, but certainly 101 appearances between the three goalkeepers, are obviously very experienced. This is one thing that I feel like is quite good about this squad. Obviously, with the more times that Scotland have played over the last 12 months, they've basically played as the same unit. They've given a lot more experience. There's a lot more people, a lot more players, over 10 caps, 15 caps, 20 caps, some even at 30 or 40 caps in this squad. So nonetheless, really good to see so many, like, these core group of players getting the run out in the first team, and obviously pushing towards the greater goal, and the greatest goal of all being this summer's Euros. So we go into the defence. Again, like I say, not a lot of big surprises. The big question was the big question was who was going to be the right back along with Stephen O'Donnell. That question has obviously been answered with debutant and 19-year-old Nathan Patterson from Rangers. I think has only played something around 7 appearances for Rangers, but nonetheless he has obviously gained high praise. Obviously was had his controversy with the sort of group gathering that had happened with a few other Rangers players. But nonetheless, he's come in and he's done a good job in replacing Jason Tavernier after his injury spell towards the end of last season, going through sort of March, April time. But yeah, did a really good job, and I think that's kind of led to, obviously with the old firm, with the Rangers backing, to his name being definitely pushed forward into the debate. Obviously it's very much Steve Clarke's own decisions, but nonetheless you can't argue with a player doing well at an old firm club, and especially a Scottish one at that. There's plenty of them in the squad, as we'll come on to in a minute. So Nathan Patterson will potentially get his first call up. You'll probably see that, especially in the warm-up games. Whether he'll get much game time depends on Stephen O'Donnell's personal fitness and the overall layout of the team as well. And we'll probably go on to that later on, and the respective teams that I'll maybe set out later on. Centre back spot. Also Stephen O'Donnell at right back. Obviously a very familiar name right by now. Has had a fair few good games for Scotland. There's no doubt in that. Sometimes he can go a little bit missing in games, but nonetheless, 18 caps, 29 years old. Can't argue that he is probably the most experienced right back that Scotland have, and is someone that definitely has the right back spot on lockdown. I get no pun intended, considering, but nonetheless, he is probably the first choice right back, and you can imagine that Steve Clarke will stick with him in the more key games, England, Croatia, etc., or just any game in the Euros, to be fair. The other potential questions at right back was like Sean Rooney. Obviously has done double scored in both cup finals for St Johnstone, has obviously played very well as well, getting his spot in the St Johnstone team after the turn of the year when Danny McMara went back on loan, but that's maybe a different story altogether. So yeah, I mean, his name, I'm surprised wasn't maybe more of a shout, or it didn't really get enough of a look in, but whether I might be wrong in thinking that is, I don't know. I would have liked to have seen him in the team myself, but it is what it is. He might get future call-ups down the line. He's still a fairly young guy, so you can't really put too much criticism on him or anything like that, or any kind of real, shout out, why is this player on this, but it was always going to be close as to who was going to get the second right back spot. But yeah, and then Liam Palmer has obviously been in it for the last few years, but his form has pretty much dropped as in the same way that his team has. So I'm not surprised he wasn't getting a look at it. It was pretty obvious that he probably wasn't going to get a look in, let's be brutally honest. So Nathan Patterson and Stephen O'Donnell, right back positions, going in the squad going to Euros. Centre backs, now a lot of key figures on this. Not too many questions, I would say, over the players who went. There's no doubt that also Kieran Tierney will probably be used more of a centre back going into the Euros. There's no doubt in that. Him playing left centre back is probably his better position for Scotland. Is probably his main position for Scotland, unless something happens to the skipper Andy Robertson. So we're imagining he'll be used more of a left back role. If that it could very well change. We will know, obviously, going into June, the warm-ups, and indeed the Euros itself. Scott McKenna has obviously gone down to Forest over the last year, and they seem to be doing okay. It seems like there's been a lot of good things being heard about him going down south. I've not seen too much of him, so it sounds like he's deserved his call up. I'm no doubting that at all, but I was obviously a little bit sceptical at first over his name potentially being brought in, but since I've heard more good things being said about him as he's gone down to Forest more, I thought, okay, yeah, fair enough. You can't really deny that. Good league, obviously a good standard league down south. So his name involved 19 caps, some good experience at centre half, but none more so than Grant Hanley, who obviously returned to the national team in the spring internationals, and obviously scored against Austria, scored a really good header there, and I think played really well over those international games when we thought maybe his time had gone. I didn't actually realise, looking here, he's only 29 years old. I thought he was still maybe into his early 30s, maybe similar into his mid 30s, but nonetheless, 29 years old, still some good mileage left in the tank, especially if you're looking at the games over the summer and indeed going forward as we push towards the World Cup in Qatar, hopefully, and the Nations League campaign, etc. So, good to see him in there. I did kind of suspect that he was one of the first names in there in the centre half spot, along with the likes of Kieran Tierney, given that could be his natural spot. Other centre halves in there, Declan Gallagher's in there. So I'm not entirely surprised by that. I think he did miss out on the last campaign. I might be wrong in that. I'm pretty sure he missed out on the last campaign, due to injury or whatnot. But nonetheless, not a huge surprise considering that he played probably his best game for Scotland against Serbia. Certainly closing down Mitrovic, basically taking him out of the game for the vast majority of it. So no doubt in his inclusion in there. Liam Cooper in there as well, Leeds captain in a very, very, very good Leeds team. That obviously finished 11th, I think, this season. So a very respectable campaign for them. Obviously, you can argue the fact they did concede a very high amount of goals, but you kind of have to associate that with their style of play. Very high intensity, very high pressure. So yeah, I don't think you can really ask too much questions about his own personal ability, or certainly comparing that with the style of play that he plays in. It's obviously going to be very different for Scotland. How he'll adjust to that is going to be very much a question if he gets game time over the Euros and over the summer. Yep, Jack Hendry as well, certainly a younger figure. I say that, he's 26 now, but has done very, very well at Oostende in Belgium. So, playing out on loan, whether he'll stay out there is a question mark there. Whether he'll return to Celtic and potentially seek more game time there, I don't think that's very much out of the question, considering that Celtic obviously have struggled this year at the back and in big games as well. So we'll see how that goes. Jack Hendry, I think, for me, is could be one of the most important figures in that team, and certainly playing on the opposite side to Kieran Tierney in the back three. But yeah, we'll go through that in a little bit once I go through the rest of the team. And Andy Robertson, obviously, there's no doubt in his inclusion in the team. Captain, has done very well for Liverpool. But the only thing is, he has started every game this season for Liverpool. Started all 38 games in the Premier League, and obviously in the Champions League football, he's played a lot of games. So 40-50 game season for him. How's that going to affect him going into the summer? I don't know, but obviously there's a lot of other players in the same boat as he is. So I guess you can't really argue his motivation. Scotland captain, leading the Scotland team out at the Euros and the major tournament for the first time in a very, very long time. So hopefully he'll lead us to good glory. And Greg Taylor underneath him, now that was a little question mark over, has Greg Taylor played well enough at Celtic to deserve a call-up? I don't know, it's a difficult one. There's obviously a lot of other good left-backs, not only playing here but abroad as well. I mean, you've got the likes of Aaron Hickey coming up. He was another name that was in there. And yeah, a couple of other players dotted around the country as well, that maybe deserved a look in. But Greg Taylor has got his time. How much football he play, considering if Robbo gets injured, you're looking at Kieran Tierney maybe slotting over, unless there's a big defensive crisis. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be very difficult to see Greg Taylor get much game time, but nonetheless, it'll be a good experience from him as a 23-year-old lad hopefully going to be in the Scotland teams for future. In the future, yeah, I mean, all in all, that defensive unit, there's not a lot of questions to be asked there. I mean, you could have you're looking at Jason Kerr potentially getting in there. There's not a huge amount of depth at centre half other than that, really, when you think about it. Also, Jason Kerr plays in a back three, is very confident there, very good player on the ball as well, and is a good leader, obviously being St Johnstone captain. So, I don't know, it's a very difficult one to say whether he should have got in, or whether it was just maybe a bit too soon and a bit too big a magnitude of a tournament, or just a period for Scotland. It's obviously the most important period they've had, or the most important squad they've had to name for 20 odd years. So, I don't know. Certainly down the line, you're looking at a lot of these younger players who maybe missed out on this squad getting into future squads, maybe in the autumn or into next year as well. Now, midfielders. A lot of big names in the centre mid position that have missed out here. Ryan Gauld as well. Brilliant. Well, that's far too over. Far too many brilliants. Yeah, just the brilliant, I would say, campaign for French in Portugal. Obviously went down this year, but Player of the Month award in April for him. 9 goals and 7 assists. Numerous Man of the Match awards in a very good quality league in Portugal. So, some would say unlucky, but I think there was perhaps some paperwork issues that denied him a spot in this European campaign. That's very much rumours. I don't know if that's true. We won't know if that's true, or we won't know if that's true for a while. But yeah, I mean, going on that's obviously extremely unlucky, and we hope that. Well, we know he's now out of contract for French, whether he'll then move maybe back home. There's rumours that Celtic are interested, or Rangers are interested, or I don't know. There's numerous names interested. Norwich coming up from the Championship down south, whether they'll maybe look at him. Brighton. Numerous names around the UK looking at getting us interested, as well as a couple in Portugal. Braga were potentially looking at him in January. That move didn't go through, but certainly out of contract this summer, you'll probably have no shortage of interested teams. So we'll see where he goes next year and whether he can carry on that form as well. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I would say he was one of the main ones that we all looked at and thought he should definitely be in there. Brilliant campaign, but no, obviously not for one reason or another. Hopefully nothing too serious. The names that have gone though in the centre mid, or the main midfield positions, John McGinn, 32 caps, 10 goals, has obviously been good goal scoring form for Scotland, especially that wonderful overhead kick against Austria in the spring. But yeah, obviously going to be one of the key figures. Another good campaign for Villa under his belt. So yeah, obviously has done really well, and we'll look forward to seeing where he plays over this summer, or how he does and how important he'll be for the Scotland team and any success they have. Callum McGregor as well, kind of one of the mainstays in that midfield. Also extremely versatile, can play a lot deeper, and can definitely balance out the midfield. Stuart Armstrong in there as well. Obviously there's going to be, going into the England game, there's going to be flashbacks to the game at Hampden 4 years ago, and obviously his failure to clear the ball, which led to the England equaliser. But no, someone who's had a very solid campaign for Southampton rather. We don't want to confuse Saints with St Johnstone, obviously. For Southampton, and obviously someone who can provide a good deal of quality, if need be, for Scotland. Scott McTominay, Manchester United midfielders, played a very solid campaign. I think is one of the most technically gifted players that Scotland have, and I don't think there's really any doubt in his inclusion in this squad. Is also going to be used as more of a deeper role. Whether he'll maybe be used as centre half, I don't know. I very much doubt it. He's probably, like I said, the most technically gifted midfield player that we have in our squad at the moment. And then we get to the names that were maybe possibly going to be in and out. One of the ones that maybe are going to be replaced with Ryan Gauld, whatever midfield names are flung around the place. John Fleck obviously has gone down with Sheffield United, but is someone who is fairly dependable by Steve Clarke, who's considered very dependable. And he does a good job. He does a decent job for the team. He's got a decent amount of quality, but you do think that there are better players in the team that will get in the strongest 11 before him. But whatever impact he has, we're waiting to see. And then the two uncapped teenagers, right? One of these is not a teenager. One of them who is a teenager is Billy Gilmore. His first inclusion in the Scotland squad at the biggest time. A brilliant achievement for him. Great for his career. 19 years old, playing at Chelsea now under Thomas Tuchel. He's going to be looking at a Champions League final this weekend, right before the first warm-up game against Luxembourg. Whether he'll play in that or not, I don't know. It's probably going to be too short of a turnaround for him. I think it's Wednesday next week that the warm-up game against Luxembourg is, and then obviously a few days later play the Netherlands in Portugal as well. So he might not make the Luxembourg warm-up game, but certainly the Dutch game, the Netherlands game, is certainly a good one for him. Billy Gilmore, brilliant talent. I think when he's played for Chelsea, he's played very solidly, and you've got to consider the players he's up against in the N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic. Extremely high talented players, extremely highly well regarded players. You can't really doubt that he's a great talent, and hopefully he can bring something to this team. And if he wins the Champions League, he'll be buzzing for the Euros. Coming in as a European champion, you can't really get much better than that. So wonderful to see him in the squad. We knew it would happen. We knew it would happen imminently. So that's great. David Turnbull as well, another debutant in there. Brilliant season for Celtic. Arguably been one of the top performers in an underwhelming Celtic team, it has to be said. Miles away from the title, out of Europe in calamitous fashion. So yeah, obviously he's still regarded as one of the best performers for Celtic. So good to see him in the squad. But yeah, there's a bit of a sort of top heavy balance I'm seeing. It's like, so you've got like sort of Gilmore, Turnbull, Armstrong, McGinn, forward thinking players, but then you've got Fleck, McGregor, McTominay, more defensive minded players. Billy Gilmore in there as well. I suppose when you think about it, it's 4 and 4. But yeah, I think the big miss for someone will be Ryan Jack. I think Ryan Jack was brilliant for Scotland when he played. It's devastating for him to get his injury that obviously has ruled him out of this Euros, and indeed the end of the Rangers campaign, the Rangers title winning campaign. So hard luck for him, but we know that he'll come back and he'll be extremely important for Scotland teams down the line. So we hope that he gets back soon. Kieran McLean as well, played well in the spring as well, but played really well for Norwich this season, and a very good Norwich team, it has to be said. But unfortunately, injury has also ruled him out of the Euros, so it's a big shame for him, but nonetheless, another potentially very important player down the line for Scotland. And now we get to the forwards. The wingers, first of all, we kind of assumed were always going to get in Ryan Fraser and James Forrest. Obviously, James Forrest, 35 caps for him as a Scotland player. Obviously, had a long injury spell going up until sort of springtime, but has worked his way back in the team and has performed relatively well as well, especially post-split. So, his quality is unquestioned. It's there. He's got good pace. He's got great ability to cut inside, outside, down the line, whatever. So you can't really argue that he could be very important. Obviously now closing on 30 years old. He'll be 30 years old on July the 7th. So he's got only a couple of weeks short of 30, which is quite remarkable, considering he still kind of looks like he's about 25 or probably a lot younger. So we'll see what his role is. There's obviously Ryan Christie as well, listed as a forward here. I'm going off the Wikipedia page. But Ryan Christie in here as well, he's going to be in there. It's been sort of up and down. There was obviously a lot of memes going around about whenever he shoots, he hits over the bar. But, obviously there's no doubt in that he's going to be a very formidable player. He's obviously going to come on and make an impact, or start and make an impact. So, obviously good with his feet. So, we'll see where he plays. Obviously there's going to be a lot of competition around the number 10 spot. If indeed there is one, or whether there'll be sort of 3 men midfields or whatever. So yeah, interesting to see how he'll play and whether he'll be up to the form that we know he can be. Ryan Fraser, like I say, great pace, brilliant player to play off a front man, a target man. Obviously like Lyndon Dykes, who's also in the squad. So yeah, interesting to see where he'll play, whether he could be played as a wide player or as a second striker. We'll see what happens. Lyndon Dykes, there's no doubt in that he was probably going to be in the squad. Has returned to relatively good goal scoring form at QPR after a lengthy dry spell, a lengthy goal drought at QPR. Scored a good few goals at the end of the season, so he's coming in form. As is Che Adams, who's had a couple of good goals. Obviously, has just recently been selected for the Scotland team, and a young man who could potentially take us forward in the future, along with Lyndon Dykes and indeed Kevin Nisbet, who has the same birthday as me. One cat, but certainly a good player and a good third choice striker to have on if we need him. If we need him at any time, and we know that he has a good eye for goal as well. Obviously, he's come off a Scottish Cup final defeat, but you know he's still a very good player in his own right, a good finisher as well. So, with that all being said, that's the 26 players that are going to the European Championships this summer. With that being said, the starting 11 that I could picture in my mind, we're going to play a 5-3-2 as we usually do. I can't see it being changed in that. Marshall in goal for me is pretty much like undeniable. I just don't think Steve Clarke will move away from that. I don't think I would either. So there's no doubt that Stephen O'Donnell, right wing back, I think is probably going to be the shout. We need to play very much a more solid formation, and I think him playing right back and being a more defensive right wing back is going to be very important. The back three for me, it's a difficult one. I think Grant Hanley plays in the middle in that back three. Kieran Tierney plays on the left, and on the right I think it's very difficult. Liam Cooper very good on the ball, but I think Jack Hendry edges it for me. I think he plays very well for Scotland in his last run out. So I think he gets in as a starter. I think it's very important to have his agility in there as well. But Liam Cooper certainly making this case for that as well. Declan Gallagher, I don't know. Declan Gallagher in there, so I think it's maybe he could be a good rotation player if we need to make a couple of changes throughout the tournament, as would be Liam Cooper, as would be Scott McKenna as well. But I think that back three has very good balance. There's no doubt that Hendry and Tierney are very good on the ball. We know that Tierney will play along the left wing back, which is Andy Robertson. There'll be a lot of one goes, one comes back, that type of thing. So I think that'll be a very good weapon for us on the left hand side with Robertson as our captain. The midfield three, this is very difficult. I think for me, the mainstay, the middle of that three is Scott McTominay. Obviously, drop deeps a lot, comes and collects the ball, and can very good eye for a pass. So I think for him, for me, he's in there absolutely dead on certainty. And I think John McGinn in there, I think has to play. He can be one of the shuttlers, goes and links up with the front two as well. It's a difficult one. For me, I would probably have to say maybe Billy Gilmore. I think Billy Gilmore maybe gets a shout in there. Let's give a few of the names. Stuart Armstrong maybe. Callum McGregor, someone's obviously very dependable. Is a bit more of a deeper line player as well, so you could go like a 2-1 as opposed to a flat 3. I don't know. Yeah, I think you probably have to go with the experience of Callum McGregor, and I think the sort of stability that he has allows a bit more freedom for John McGinn as well to go and collect balls and obviously link with the front two. Front two for me, if we put the Czech Republic game, if we're looking at, I think the Dykes-Fraser partnership that we had last autumn when we beat them at Hampden, I think worked extremely well. I think Ryan Fraser's a massive threat. Dykes is obviously imperious in the air. But then you can't argue with Che Adams. Che Adams is a wonderful player, good finisher, a pretty good all rounder actually. But I don't know I don't know too much about him and the Adams Dyke partnership. That could be potentially one to test out in the warm ups as well to see if that works, and if that is something that's going to really help us going forward. So, to round off that, Marshall at the back, a back five of O'Donnell, Hendry, Hanley, Tierney and Robertson. I'd go McGinn, McTominay and McGregor, and then Fraser and Dykes as a forward two for the Czech Republic game, although I can see Adams working with Dykes as a front two as well. So, It's all systems go. Right, coming off to that, cut off there, forget the camera, only records for half an hour. I can't believe I've done half an hour already. I feel like I've rambled on, ramble. But yes, I can't believe we're 3 weeks away. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait for it. I'm going to be in Glasgow around the time of the England game. So I can't wait to experience the atmosphere for it first hand, and hopefully things will lift up. We're in level 3 in Glasgow, level 2 everywhere else, so hopefully we get into Glasgow and it'll be totally fine. I'm ready for what will be a wonderful summer of football. I honestly pray that Scotland can at least win a game at the Euros and potentially get into the knockout stages on the back of that. But I honestly can't wait. It's going to be great to see fans in Scottish stadiums again. I'm extremely jealous I'm not there. To everyone who said go and make the biggest amount of noise, I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be remarkable. As always guys, thank you very much for watching. We're 3 weeks away, it's incredible, and I can't wait to see us perform and hopefully shock the world and, you know, provide some incredible moments that will live on for Scotland football history forever. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I can't wait for it. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a bit longer than I imagined it, but nonetheless, I do hope you enjoy it. Leave a like, subscribe for new episodes. We're going to be looking at season reviews all over Europe, some in Scotland as well. But yes, thanks very much for watching guys. We'll see you very soon. Take care. Come on Scotland!